Good afternoon, everybody. I am the last presenter between you and lunch, so stay strong, you're nearly there, okay. So the idea of this session in particular is to try and bring it to life a little bit about what's the end user experience like when we get this right. So I'll do a little bit just to kind of set the scene about what I see in this space. And then I'm going to walk you through what we've brought together for our customers in terms of how we've created an integrated solution that actually brings identity and device lifecycle together. And yeah, hopefully quick summary and then a chance for questions at the end if you have any. But one of the things, so this is Matt Richards, obviously. This is his picture of end user frustration. We see quite a lot that onboarding a new employee, so the JML process, the J of JML, joiner, it's the front door to IT in many ways. This is the first time anyone's going to experience the IT in an organization when they join. Very often, it's a case of having multiple devices assigned to them. Many organizations, it's going to be provision of some kind of endpoint laptop device and also potentially a smartphone as well. And alongside all of that, you've got the permissions that you need to have in place in order to run on a day-to-day basis within the organization. So what do you think the first day productivity is in many organizations? And you know, I put be honest. I think in previous experience of other organizations I've joined, I came from a very large bank once upon a time, and I think it's fair to say that the onboarding experience, there was no first day productivity. Being truthful, the reality was that you were doing quite well if in your first week you were actually up and running with everything, if I'm honest. And I think that's true in a lot of cases. And this is the interesting cross-section of security, and lots of good things put in place for a good reason. Logistics and processes and all these other things that have got to come together. It can really, they always say, setting a good first impression. This is the first impression of IT. This is the face of IT. People consume their IT effectively through their endpoints. So we did a piece of work to really try and bring this together for a customer. So we've obviously got identity, and we've got the whole concept of taking identity, but also integrating it into the end user devices. So if we're talking about, provision of laptops, smartphones, the provision of an account, and then the ongoing processes that underpin all of this as well. So I'm going to talk in particular about joiner, but actually this is an overlay of all kinds of processes for when people change role, when they move around the organization and suddenly things change, or when they leave the organization and there's got to be processes that kick in there. And a lot of today's conversation has been around accounts and permissions and privileges, and it's very important, but actually the same thing is true. It's not unheard of in organizations that stock logistics, getting laptops back off people, getting phones back off people. These are genuine challenges that will be in place. And they, in their own way, create an interesting security risk in their own right. So this is kind of a workflow, and you'll see the kind of the user actions and system actions that are going on in here. It's a busy slide, but hopefully it'll bring it to life for you in terms of what we're able to do here. So as has already been said, the number one source of truth for all of this, the master source of truth going forwards, is your HR system. If you've got garbage in your HR system, then you're in trouble. But this is ultimately there should be the triggering event for all kinds of actions in IT, not just accounts, but all kinds of actions will start to happen. So new person is going to be hired, they've been created in the system. So in this case, we're talking Bamboo HR, could be any number of HR platforms. That's going to automate the creation of something in Entra ID. And logically, that can then also synchronize back to your traditional world. So you can start to see you've got your Active Directory, and permissions are automatically started to be applied to traditional on-premise resources. So that's all started to happen straight away. In addition, because it's Entra ID, we're also now starting to do the provisioning into all of the third-party cloud solutions that you have as well. So we can automate all of that because logically, you're not just consuming the Microsoft stack. There will be every organization is its own unique collection of applications and services that they'll pull together. And you can create logic. You can create logic by role, by function, by all these sort of things that start to automate provision of all this privilege and access. This is the end game of traditionally doing things with groups back in the day, but actually applying business logic to it and automated drivers. And it will also then start to create a mailbox for them. They're provisioned in Office 365. They've now got an email account in Exchange. And that information is fed back into Entra ID. The email address is now created on the account. And what's more, it's back in the HR system. So now the HR system, they've not invented the email address. The email address has been created by rules and fed back into the HR system. So the HR system is now up to date with what will be the email address for this person. So working out, my name is Andy Brown. I think when I was at a large bank, there were about 20 of us, different Andy Browns. It's impossible for HR to know which Andy Brown it's going to be in terms of email address when they're setting things up. So this is already done for you. Now, this is where it gets cool. And this is kind of building on some of the presentations that we've had previously. We've now got the ability to actually do something way beyond this. So not only have we created accounts and privileges permissions, but Kocho also do supply of kit. We do complete life cycle for kit. We're able to ship a new device out. We're able to configure it as required. We can bundle up accessories. We can then also do end of life cycle. We can do re-provisioning, repairs, all this hardware piece. We get potentially requests going to either the individual or to the manager of the new joiner saying, someone's joining. And I'll bring this to life in terms of some of the examples that are coming later. And crucially, it builds out again. So we've now got the ability to also update further actions into what's going on, letting other teams know in terms of what extra additional privileges are required. And some of these are automated, some of these are actually, things going into a system, into a queue to be reviewed and checked. So you wouldn't automatically give people admin privileges, but they could be joining in a function that logically means they're going to need admin privileges. So again, there's all this is actually automated for you on your behalf. And that, like I say, I'm talking about joiners here, but also logically you can see these journeys, because we've got the links between all the various components, start to work in terms of what happens when people move a function. If you move from, let's say you're on a service desk job and you have a lower spec of machine, you've moved to finance, they're more powerful, power-hungry users. Not only do your privileges and permissions need to change, but so does the device. Someone somewhere has got to go, right, I need to take that old laptop off you and I need to give you this new one. And so all of this can be automated. And as I mentioned, we actually have the ability to do a complete life cycle on the endpoint as well. So this is obviously not directly linked to identity, but this is what brings it all to life, is the ability to do this as well. So we can actually do something for you where effectively you can have a catalog of available devices in an organization. We can go through this with you and say, which devices do you want to range? Which ones are available? Which devices are relevant for which roles? We can do all of the request, the approval, the logging, the fulfillment, and also the repairs, the stock management, making sure you top up your stock. What do you do at the end of life? What do you do when someone leaves the organization? Does that device go off to be recycled and come back into inventory? All of that is available because we can do this across all devices in one process. So whether it's Windows, which is obviously normally the primary compute platform you'll see inside most organizations that we deal with anyway, or indeed, interestingly, obviously you've got smartphones, but you've also got Mac. And Mac is always the problem child in marketing or something like that, most organizations, especially enterprise type organizations. if you're Mac, there will be Macs inside a lot of organizations, but they're kind of almost the exception to the rule. Don't make them the exception to the rule, actually bring them into the processes, because you can delight everybody with this kind of stuff. And obviously, if you're not a fan of Apple, you can obviously think about the world of Android as well, which really does open up a smorgasbord of various flavors of device choice. Normally in enterprise, we'll be talking about Samsung devices here as a rule. I'm not saying that's always the case, but that's normally what we see. Apple devices could be Surface devices if we're staying on the Microsoft stack. Whisper it around here if Microsoft is still in the room, but there are other providers of hardware on the Windows platform as well, and we support all of them. And so we're actually able to be a one-stop shop with a standard unified set of processes that create this catalog of what you want to give to various roles across all the various flavors of hardware that are out there. So just to kind of bring this to life a little bit, what does that actually look like? So the whole point of doing this is to try and create great end user experience. So what does it look like? So here's an example. These are mock-ups, but you've got a new person, they're joining the organization, and this is an example where a manager, you remember that process that prompted a request to go out. A manager's now been said, right, this new person's just been created. Which device do you want them to have? Which accessory bundles do you want them to have? Now, all of this has been automated and been created. And it's also starting to confirm information back to them for verification as well. So you can see when they're going to join. You can say, the role of CEO, interesting one, but fundamentally, you can see that there's all the information there on screen. Now, that's one example where in a lot of organizations, it may be, ordering stuff that costs money might be something that goes to a manager to approve first. But interestingly, what you can also do is really get quite interesting once you're really into zero trust network access and the ability to effectively consume your compute anywhere on any device. Then the interesting thing about the concept of why do you care which device it is in the first place starts to come to life. So in theory, you can start to make the end user have a choice. So this could go to their personal email before they've even joined to say, you're coming on board, fantastic. We can't wait for you to join. Which device do you want? Or it could just be automated to the point of, you're going to get this device and this device for your awareness, and can you just confirm, do you need a laptop stand and a portable charger? Because quite possibly, if you think about ESG and the idea of trying to consume less resource, it's possible they'll go, actually, I don't. Don't ship me that stuff. Well, you've just saved your company some money and you've actually made the world a bit of a better place in one small step there. All of this, again, automated. That's going to their personal email. So before they've even joined the organization, they're actually interacting with you in a secure way, because ultimately these are direct communications between you and them. And we can go further in terms of what they are seeing in terms of automated communications. It's like, again, someone just put this into the HR system. This person's joining on this day. It's like, fantastic. Great that you're joining us. Your start date is here. And here's where you can really start to build out these comms and say, right, here's all your onboarding stuff. Just to confirm, these are your working hours. These are, what you're going to have to bring with you on your first day to verify yourself. All these kind of things you can start to say, you can actually start to point them to some of your policies and processes so that before they've even started, they know what that looks like. Now, whether you choose to make all of that internet facing is your choice, but these are examples of what you're actually able to do. And maybe, 2 weeks to go, you can actually start to have a drip campaign. Depends how quickly you hire people, but most people are on at least a month's notice if you think about it. So you've got this opportunity to actually remind them. You can start to say, can you do some of this reading before you've even joined? How many times did you join an organization? The first thing you do is the compliance team are like, right, you've got to read these 20 policies and confirm you're compliant before you're allowed to do anything. All right, well, send it to them in advance. And you can really start to build experience into this. It's like, way, we're actually excited you're joining. One day to go. Now, that's great end user experience. And then that's all possible on the Entra platform. None of this is custom dev. All of this is using the tools and configuring things appropriately. And this is where our team can really bring it to life. And that's on the identity side. But then we can go further still. On the provisioning of kit, we're actually able to say, right, for some organizations, brand is really important. You can brand the box that the kit arrives in. You can have a single box that has the laptop and the phone that was allocated to them. And as you open the lid, the instructions of what to do next are inside the lid. All these sort of things are entirely practical to do and surprisingly cheap, being honest with you. This is where great user experience starts to come to life. Everyone remembers, there was a real spate of it at one point on LinkedIn, people posting, oh, great to be joining this new organization and it made me feel so special and shiny. Well, this is the kind of stuff that would actually prompt that kind of post. This is the thing that does actually bring it to life. And again, we've got the ability to actually provide kits. We can potentially let people choose. Do they actually need a Mac? We could potentially do that. Shh, don't mention it if Microsoft are in the room again, but it's logical you can do it, Surface, Mac, whatever it may be, smartphone as well, have automated communications and have really nice out-of-box experience. This is the thing that Apple are the kings of in the retail world, this out-of-box experience, actually having people engineering how slowly the lid comes off the box. If you really want to go to that level, but that's what people get in their personal lives. If you can actually create some of that in terms of the corporate on board, that buys you a lot of capital in the future with those users. The first impression is really, really great. And it goes beyond that to, it's more secure as well. When they come on board, they actually get a QR code to create their password. It's not that someone in IT has created their password and written it on a Post-it note and then stuck it on the machine because they've then got to build the machine. And, that's genuinely how it's happened for a very long time, and we still see it a lot. The user themselves, self-services, they create their password. You've got all of the rules and capabilities in the platform so that this really does bring it to life for them. And then you build on the out-of-box experience on the platforms themselves. So this is obviously the example of autopilot on the Windows device, but clearly you can do this Apple, Android, Mac. They all have their flavor of it. So this is something you can do so that they get their device in their lovely branded box. It's pre-provisioned as far as possible. They create their account, they've got their password, they log in, they're at their desktop. That's pretty revolutionary in terms of end user experience. So look, there's a lot we can do there. I genuinely believe that this is a great way to get, great onboarding and life cycle in place. I think it can give you better control and visibility. Interestingly, it can actually improve costs as well on the hardware side, because you're only going to be provisioning equipment where it's appropriate and reusing where appropriate as well. So lots there. It is deliberately kind of what you can do around the edge of identity and actually use it, not just as a tool to control access, but actually to bring experience to life.